What is up, everybody? I am R.C. Gates, and today for our first official comic review, we are going to be taking a look at the first 4 issues of a comedy science fiction comic published by Alterna Comics and created by Wes Loker. Please join me as we take a look at the Alterna Giants version of Unit 44. So this is the Alterna Giants version of Unit 44. This compiles the first 4 issues of Unit 44 into one book, and it shows all of one story arc, or pretty much the beginning story arc of Unit 44. This is probably one of the better ways to bring in new readers to a comic story. And it's something that Alterna Comics does extremely well. They'll take several issues of a book, ones that all have the same storyline going on in them, and it will compile them all into one book. One of the ways that comic creators can appeal to new readers is to look at their books as having the chance to be someone's first comic book, because you never know if someone will be picking up Unit 44 or any of the other books that I'll be reviewing and having that be the first comic book that they picked up. So this is something that Alterna does extremely well. This book is currently an ongoing series with Alterna Comics. It is available on their Indiegogo campaigns, and it's also available on their site as well. So that is all the preliminary information that I wanted to get out before we get into the actual review. So the first part of this review is going to be about the story of Unit 44. And thankfully for us, we have this handy-dandy little story synopsis up at the top of the first page. So it says, Area 51's storage unit has fallen into the wrong hands. Agents Gibson and Hatch forget to pay the rent on the facility's off-site storage unit, and the secret contents are sold at a public auction. When an alien invasion threatens Earth, the agents will have to recover the unit's contents if they have any hope of stopping the extraterrestrial threat. So in other words, we're pretty much doomed. And this pretty much sets up the more comedic aspects of the story, because Unit 44 is pretty much like a buddy cop story, but with Area 51 agents. And you'll see agents Hatch and Gibson, and you're pretty much introduced to them as they're being told about Unit 44's sort of lapse in payments. So you're starting at the same point where they are starting, and you go through from here to where you see the people who purchased Unit 44, which are Chester and Ike, some hillbillies who pretty much just either lucked out or weren't so lucky in getting Unit 44. And they discover the alien secrets, and these 4 pages pretty much kick off the story behind this storage unit, I guess, and the hilarity that ensues. So from this point on, you're having Hatch and Gibson being sent after these hillbillies by their supervisor, who is Agent Ballard. And he's pretty much like the rough and tough, gruff, if there's any other words that rhyme with those. He's sort of like a police commissioner from like an 80s action movie where he just rants and raves and completely berates these imbecile agents of his, and it's hilarious every time it happens. And from then on, it's pretty much a cat and mouse game between dumbass agents and dumbass hillbillies. And it goes pretty much as you would expect. The agent's going to a town where the hillbillies are and interacting with the people there. So you get to see the comedic interactions between them and all these other people. And eventually they get around to actually encountering the dumbasses. And from that point on, it sort of evolves the story into a larger problem for our heroes. So at that point, you're also figuring out that, sorry, give me 1 second to get to that actual point. Okay. So at that point, you're also figuring out that there are actually human villains in this story as well. And those would be 2 rogue Area 51 agents. One who is younger and currently works with our 2 heroes, Hatch and Gibson. And one who is older and is sort of more of a rugged, insane old guy. And he used to work with Ballard. And throughout that time, you also find out that these rogue agents, or more specifically the older agent, has a history with the aliens who he actually wants to come back so that he can repay them for taking away his sanity. And it's quite interesting all the way through, because all of these characters, there's no real sanity to them. They're all very weird. They're all very funny. All of their interactions are honestly gold. And it's definitely something that I would want you to see all the way through. At the end, there is a more of a climactic fight scene with the aliens invading and Hatch and Gibson having to save the day and using all these alien artifacts and stuff. And pretty much just at the end of the story, it's just everything that was in Unit 44 is now back in Unit 44, which is boggles the mind that they would just put everything back into the same unit that they forgot to pay for at the beginning. But it's a very funny story, and there were several times where I actually laughed while I was reading this book. And that's actually saying something for a comedy story, because usually I'm just oh, it's funny, but this one actually did make me laugh because it was quite entertaining and quite funny. So that's the story. I really liked it. There is little cliffhangers, little teasers for future stories in the storyline of Unit 44, other supernatural and spacey stuff, and I'm really looking forward to those. I'm just gonna sort of leave this stuff out so you guys can see the art as well while I'm going through this review. Pardon me. But that's all for the story. Now we're going to move on to characters. Now, the characters, I've already covered that they're all very funny. They all interact very well together. But you have Agent Hatch, you have Agent Gibson, and Hatch, as you can see from the first page, Hatch is sort of like the big brawny idiot. And he's pretty much like a guy where you want to use small words whenever you're talking to him, because otherwise he's either not going to understand what you're talking about, or he's going to infer what you're talking about and try to resolve it with his fists. So throughout the entirety of this comic, I was sort of picturing him with a Patrick Warburton voice, which perfectly encapsulates that character. And he and his interactions with Gibson are absolutely on point. Gibson is sort of he's one who you could usually see as like, he's like the thin and lanky slacker, and he tries to do his job, but he doesn't really do it well. So having his interactions with Hatch, it's like two sides of the same dumbass coin, and all of their interactions are gold. I would want to see more of these characters, and as the series progresses, I'm definitely going to be looking into more of these characters, because honestly, they're quite funny. Then, as I've already covered, Agent Ballard, he's sort of like the gruff cop who doesn't take any crap at all. He's pretty much, you do it my way or get the hell out. Again, his interactions with Hatch and Gibson play out exactly as you would expect it to. Maybe with a little bit more violence on Ballard's part, but it's still absolutely hilarious. Chester and Ike, I think he sort of gets pushed to the side a little bit as the book progresses, but Chester, he's one that is actually referred back to at the end of the book, and is sort of inferred that he may have a bigger part in the series as it progresses. But both of them are quite funny. They're both quite stupid. And they're pretty much like exactly what you would expect hillbilly characters who are bidding on storage units to be like. So they're definitely funny. They're definitely good characters. They have their own individual voices that carry on throughout the comic, and it's quite hilarious with how they are. The villains, there are actually three villains. There's the alien race, which is the Free Dawkins, and the main alien, which is Snackun. I think I'm saying those names correctly. He's not really a villain. He's more of just like a misunderstood alien who is just annoying to the other villain. The other villain is the former Area 51 agent Albright, Lance Albright, and he is trying to get the Free Dawkins to invade Earth so that he can destroy them, because he was tasked with watching over Snackun whenever he was whenever they first came to Earth, and it just drove him completely batshit insane. So he's trying to just get his revenge on them, and it sort of brings in the rest of Area 51 to sort of stop that. Now, the only problem that I'm seeing with these characters is the last villain that I'm going to bring up. And that's an Area 51 agent by the name of Lindsay. She's not really much of a factor in the book. She is responsible for actually getting the Unit 44 stuff from the hillbillies to Albright. And this is Lindsay right here. But she's not really referred to in the first, what I would assume is the first issue. She only appears in one panel. So having this reveal on this page, like she's some sort of, like it's a big reveal that she's the villain, it doesn't really make sense because she's not really referenced in the previous issue at all. So maybe a little bit confusing, maybe wondering like, oh, this is a new person, but actually she was referred to in the first one, so it's like, it's a little bit confusing. But as I'm moving my stuff around, there we go. So she's the only villain who I would have a problem with, because she is just not referenced much and you don't see much of her. But everyone else as a character works just fine. Moving on from the characters to the art. The art of this book is quite good. The characters have unique designs. You can tell them apart, obviously. There's no such thing as same face syndrome in this book. That's for damn sure. And all of them have their own, as I've said, original designs. The colors work quite well with the book. The only thing I would have a problem with in this book with the art is the tone. Honestly, it's just the tone. Because there are times whenever there are like action panels, I guess you would say, or action scenes, and they'll do them quite well. Like there's this shot where Hatch is punching Chester in the face. That one actually looks like it's framed like an action shot. But then there's other times where there's action going on and it's played more for the comedic side. And let me see if I can try and find an example of this. Okay. So, take this page. Actually, that might be a better example. Give me one moment. All right. Okay. So, you guys saw the action panel. But whenever there is more of a comedic sequence of events that's going on, the comic will sort of revert to what you would expect more from like a comedic webcomic, where it is all in one orientation, and the camera just sort of moves around. It doesn't have like different camera angles, it's just flat. And it sticks out because this is an actual comic, and it's not something that you would necessarily expect to see in an actual comic. You would expect to see different camera angles, different ways to capture actions, and you'd expect more variety. However, since this is a comedic sci-fi book, I am very much willing to let that slide, because for someone who is just going to pick up this book, they're not going to notice that. They may notice that it's a little bit flat, but unless you're really looking for it, you're not going to notice it, because you're going to be engrossed in the story. So overall, the art is good. The designs of the characters are good. So I do really like the art style. I just think it could use a little bit more variety in the panels themselves. Now, whenever it comes to the writing, which is the next thing that we're going to be covering, the writing is quite good. The story moves along at a good pace. Each of the characters have their own voices. I can tell which characters are speaking whenever they are speaking. And you can tell that each of them have their own personalities. Alright, so we are going to move on to the last thing that I cover with these comic reviews, and that is interest. And if you couldn't already guess, this book is actually quite interesting. There is a continuing story going through it. There's endless opportunities for supernatural or extraterrestrial stories that will come out of Area 51 or any of these other places. So being able to see the future stories of Hatch and Gibson, I'll very much be looking forward to that. Like I said, at the end of this book, and the end of the story, there is a teaser that there will be more stuff coming out of Unit 44. And I really look forward to seeing more of these characters and more of the stories that surround them. So, that was Unit 44, the first 4 issues of this series. And overall, if I was going to give my final review of this book, I would probably have to give it a popcorn level. No. It's a very well-written book. The characters are great. The story is intriguing, and there's endless opportunities that will come from it. So I'm looking forward to seeing what else Wes Loker is going to be bringing us with the further continuations of Unit 44. Well, that is all that I have for you guys today. I hope you all enjoyed the comic review. Please make sure to like, comment your opinions, your thoughts on these reviews, and also on the comics themselves, because I would like to hear what you guys think about them. Please make sure to subscribe to the channel for more comic reviews just like this one. And please also follow me on social media, on Twitter, Instagram, and Truth Social. Thank you all for watching, and I will see all of you guys in the next video. Peace out.